Security guard chased by the dogman. Dear Scary Stories NYC. I used to work as a security guard at a Ford plant in Michigan. A factory, I mean. I'm an average-sized woman, but I felt tiny on that job. Especially on the night when I found myself accidentally spooking an actual real bear-sized or larger Michigan dogman. Part of my job was to make the rounds with a flashlight and a walkie-talkie. I wasn't supposed to do anything but call in problems. Like if I saw an intruder, I was not to confront him. I was not to attempt to overpower or arrest him. And I didn't have a gun or anything like that. But I didn't then and I don't now know why someone would break into a working car factory. So I wasn't really very scared as I made my rounds. It was actually an excuse to get up off my butt and not have to watch the security monitors for a while. I enjoyed getting to stretch my legs and getting to do something with my eyes besides stare at a screen all night shift. But I kept seeing stuff moving in the dark in this one area where parts were fixed. I was walking over there to throw the lights on so that when I eventually got back to the video monitors, I'd be able to see inside that room better. I don't know why I wasn't really expecting anyone to be in there, but I wasn't. I figured it was the video glitching out when I thought I saw movement in the dark. It was quite surprising when I walked in that room, turned the light on, and found myself staring at the belly of a hairy monster of some sort. And then I looked up and saw the head of this thing. And it was a kind of almost a bear face. It wasn't a bear though. Its ears were totally wrong. They were more like a dog's ears. It was too big and too burly to be a dog though. It was standing up in that way that bears do. But its posture was a lot more sure-footed than you would expect. The legs were longer too, and more like those of a dog. A dog that was into bodybuilding, but still essentially dog-like legs, if you know what I mean. But these hind legs were supporting the entire weight of the monster, and they didn't seem to be buckling or having any trouble. In fact, it seemed quite sure of itself, and very used to being up like that. At first, it didn't look like a four-footed animal at all. At first. When I shone my flashlight into the thing's face, it freaked out. Somehow it seemed to get even taller, and its arms flew up in front of the monster face. It looked like his bones would have to be as thick as tree trunks, and they looked strong enough to punch through concrete walls. It was like something out of an old Hollywood movie. It wasn't like something you would see in real life. So of course now I think that what I saw was the Michigan Dogman. But that night, I was not understanding what was happening. I had heard of the Dogman, but sort of only vaguely, and I don't think I really believed that it was for real. I mean, I had been told those were old lumberjack stories. Have you ever heard old lumberjack stories? They can get extremely silly. Like, one of the monsters that the lumberjacks made up is this creature with short legs on one side and long legs on the other. It only walks on the sides of hills, you see. Those are the kinds of stories that the lumberjacks used to tell in the old days. And the Dogman was actually one of the monsters that the lumberjacks would tell tales about. So I assumed it was probably about as real as the Hodag, or even less real, since there are at least a lot of Hodag statues in Michigan, especially in Rhinelander. I think that either some real stories of actual wolfmen got mixed in with those tall tales, or else maybe it was just a coincidence that they told tales of something they called the Dogman. Maybe they were joking around, but creatures like what I saw are real anyway. Maybe they just resemble the old tales of the Dogman. Maybe that's just a coincidence. Some of the lumberjacks in those days were of French origin, and they often told tales of werewolves, which they call loup-garou. I'm speaking of the French-Canadian loggers and trappers up in this region back in the day. Some of them later moved south, where the term loup-garou got corrupted into the term rougarou down in the Louisiana swamps. In either case, they are describing a humanoid monster wolf. The legends say that these are not mere animals, though, but wizards and sorcerers who are able to transform themselves into these beasts and perform feats that humans would not be able to perform. Obviously, I don't know if those aspects of the legends are true. It could be that some guys saw a creature like this one that I saw, and they sort of extrapolated from there. Maybe they made up the stories of the sorcerers to explain how these animals were able to stand up and walk like we do. Or maybe they knew for a fact what they were talking about. Maybe they had even seen a transformation. Me, I saw a monster beast, and I saw its glowing inhuman eyes. When it stood, it was far taller than any man I'm aware of, and it was far bulkier too. It didn't look to me as though it had ever been a human being. It looked like it was an animal that happened to be built to stand in a way similar to human beings. If that creature really was a werewolf, then a werewolf transformation would be more like Bruce Banner changing into the Hulk in the movies than Lon Chaney changing into the Wolfman. It would mean the person in question would have to become much, much larger in every way. It would mean him growing longer bones. It would mean him growing extra muscle. Where would all that mass come from? And then where would it go to when he or she transformed back? It makes my brain tickle trying to wrap my mind around it. Maybe I'm just not smart enough to understand how werewolf transformations could actually happen. To me, it seems more likely that what I encountered was an animal, but it was also a person in a kind of a way. I would explain that better if I could, but I'm not sure how else to put it. Like, I wouldn't say it was super intelligent, or smarter than an animal could or should be, but at the same time, there was this presence there that made me think of him as a person, and not a bear or a dog. Maybe I mean that it seemed to be consciously aware? I'm not even sure what that means or what I'm trying to say. It wasn't like I was looking at a dog. That's what I mean. It was like I was looking at a person who happened to be a giant bear-sized, upright walking, muscle-bound, hulking, furry dog man. But that doesn't mean I got all warm and fuzzy and invited him to evening tea. This was some kind of a person, yes, but it was a giant person. It was a wild person. It was caught where it wasn't supposed to be, and it looked like it was about to freak the F out. I decided to talk calmly to it. I thought I would talk to it the way I used to talk to my own dog Sparkly when I was a kid. Sparkly used to get spooked by fireworks. Also backfiring cars, cars with bad mufflers, kids with baseball cards in their bicycle wheels, other dogs, car horns, lightning. Sparkly was spooked by nearly anything that ever happened, to be honest. So I had to calm him down a lot. I started talking like that to this giant dog, holding my empty palms open toward him to show that I meant no harm. I watched as the creature's pupils shrank to adjust to the brightness in the room. He turned his head to the side in that cute way dogs do when they're trying to understand you. He looked so funny in that moment that in spite of his great size, I took a step forward toward him. He just reminded me so much of my childhood dog Sparkly. But that dog man did not like me thinking that I could get more comfortable with him, and he let me know that quickly. His eyes lit up almost red, and his teeth locked into a huge grimace, bigger than my head. He leaned forward and he bellowed at me. It was like being barked at by a bulldog using stadium-sized speakers. His shouting felt like a punch in the chest, and I took a few quick steps backward to try to apologize for having approached him that way. I saw my hands shaking uncontrollably in front of me, and that caused me to realize just how completely scared I had become. And that realization made me feel even more frightened than before, and I found it hard to even stand up. I started to sort of stagger out of the room, feeling lightheaded, as though I were gonna faint. I tried to remember what the protocol was for a situation like this, but I was having a panic attack and it was hard to remember that I was even at work. I think I might have fainted dead away if that dogman hadn't scared the crap out of me in that next instant. He dropped down to all fours. No, he slammed it down to all fours behind me as if to say, "You don't get to just walk away after you got me so pissed off, woman." And then suddenly, I didn't feel like I was gonna faint any longer. Suddenly I had more adrenaline pumping through my veins than I could have ever imagined. That dogman didn't want me walking away from him? Fine. I would run away from him instead then. And so I ran. At first randomly, but as my wits came back to me, I tried to run in a general course back to the control room. I not only wanted to get myself to safety, but I wanted to see what this creature looked like on the security cameras. Almost immediately, the beast rounded a corner and was hot on my heels. I was about to be grabbed when I slid down the banister of a staircase on my ass, like how little kids do it. The dogman seemed to be slowed down by the stairs. They were an obstacle to the huge beast, while they had sped up my escape. This caused my survival-oriented instincts to click into place, and I realized that he had the advantage in terms of speed and strength, but I had the advantage in an environment like this, in that I was the smaller one, and I could fit in some places that would be harder for the dogman to pass through. And so I broke into a clumsy, panicked version of parkour. I was too scared to run down straight walkways, knowing the dogman would catch up in seconds. Instead, I vaulted over short fences and ran along the top until I could leap onto other surfaces too small to support that big dogman. I managed to get up to a ledge about 20 feet up in the air, confident that the dogman could not follow. He chose to try anyway, and the entire walkway I was on began to collapse under the extreme weight and the pressure of his aggressive landing on it behind me. I ducked into a doorway as the dogman and the walkway collapsed beneath and behind me. Then I did a broken field run into the control room, where the other security guard was literally napping. I called the cops to tell them we had a large animal intruder, as I knew was the protocol. The other security guard began rewinding the video to look for what I had been describing to him. We found footage of me turning the light on in that room. We could see me on the footage, but not the dogman at all. He seemed to be just off camera. When I started to run away, you could see me doing my spastic parkour, falling on my face twice, but I couldn't see the dogman following me. The footage of the outside walkway that collapsed is unclear, as a cloud of smoke erupts almost as soon as the structure begins to collapse. Neither of us could clearly see what caused that collapse in the video. You'd never see the dogman land on the walkway. I remember seeing that happen, and then the walkway collapsed. In the video, the walkway collapses in a cloud of dust, but it's never clear why or how. I honestly couldn't tell if it was just bad angles on every single camera, or if the beast simply did not show up on video. I think it was a story of incredibly bad luck, but to never have even one of the cameras catch even one frame of the beast man seems like the most unlikely coincidence in all of world history. I guess it is possible that the cameras all missed photographing the animals somehow, but it just doesn't seem likely to me. I don't have an explanation for what happened if you want complete honesty. So I was called in and questioned about what happened, but they weren't too harsh with me, considering the incredibly strange situation. One guy even took me aside and started to tell me that he'd seen some strange things happen in that factory, and I pretty much just cut him off right there. It had gotten to be too much for me. I didn't storm off like a diva or a chicken or anything like that, but when my cousin Sheila got me a job working in her grocery store, I jumped at the chance for a job I could do that didn't require the use of a flashlight or the ability to parkour. Because besides teaching me that the Dogman is real, but not real in the way you and I are, this experience also taught me that I am not very good at parkour. Coming tomorrow on the Dogman Days of Halloween, a beautiful young woman is forced to move to the city because she is terrified by the intense appreciation she receives from a dogman. In the all-new story, the dogman fell in love with me. That's tomorrow on the Dogman Days of Halloween on Scary Stories NYC. Real Wolfmen, True Encounters in Modern America. A lot of the stories we run on this channel are supposed to be true, but it's not like I have budget or time to look into any of the claims made. Someone who made her living looking into dogman claims, though, was the late great Linda Godfrey. If you like the stories on this show, then you should check out this incredible audiobook from Linda called Real Wolfmen, True Encounters in Modern America. Linda goes back to the 1930s and tells a number of the better researched dogman and werewolf stories of the 20th and 21st centuries. It's a great overview of the subject matter, whether you're new to it or even if you think you know all the stories. It's available in audiobook, audio CD, paperback, or Kindle forms at the address in the description for this video. The audiobook is over 8 hours and is probably the best deal there. Plus, if you use the link in the description, supposedly you're helping us out here in some way that I'm still learning about. And now here's your old pal Bigfoot with an important message about today's executive producer. Each month she donates more payola. She's a super sweet Deborah Areola. Please join me in thanking today's executive producer, Deborah Areola, for making this episode possible. In return, Deborah gets to watch our secret, uncensored Dogman shows, the next of which is quite scary and bloody and far too violent to ever run on this channel. That one's called Terror of the Muscle Dog, or The Dogman Killed My Uncle. It's a members-only story. Here to tell you how you can become a member is our international TV spokesmongrel, Henry Lee Dogman. Hank? Thanks, Biggie. And thanks to all of you for watching this far. If you liked it, please click like. If you'd like to see more of our work, please subscribe. And also click that bell icon if you'd like to be notified when we put out a new episode. To become an executive producer, you can donate to us through the thanks button under each of our videos or through our paypal.me/PeterBernard209 page. To receive cool perks like secret uncensored Dogman episodes far too wild to ever run on this channel, you can become a YouTube channel member by clicking the join button, or join our PayPal subscribers club at peterbernard.com. Joining either at the $3 a month level or above gets you access to our over 25 hours of secret uncensored Dogman stories available nowhere else. Do you have a scary story about Dogman or some other kind of high strangeness that happened to you? Let us know by emailing us at scarystoriesnyc@gmail.com or by leaving us a voicemail message at 804-LA-SCARY. You may need to call back on that one. It cuts off after, I think, 3 minutes. And if you don't want to do any of that stuff, thank you for simply watching to the end. Good night, and have a scary tomorrow.
Come back for more scary stories.